My name is Ashley, and I'm 28 years old. What I'm about to share with you changed everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and standing up for yourself. Christmas morning, 2023. I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. Not the good kind. The kind that warned me something was about to go terribly wrong. My mother-in-law, Patricia, had been planning this family dinner for months. She made it clear that attendance wasn't optional. Every phone call ended with the same passive-aggressive reminder. "You will be there, won't you, dear?" I should have trusted my instincts that morning. The air felt heavy with unspoken tension. My husband, Mark, was unusually quiet as he helped me load the car with presents. Our two kids, Emma and Jake, were excited about seeing their cousins. They had no idea what was coming. Patricia's house looked picture-perfect from the outside. Twinkling lights, fresh wreaths, the whole Norman Rockwell fantasy. But I knew better. I'd learned that the prettier something looked on the surface, the more rot you'd find underneath. The moment we walked through the door, I felt it. That familiar chill that had nothing to do with the December weather. Patricia greeted Mark with her usual theatrical embrace. She hugged the kids with genuine warmth. Then she turned to me. "Ashley." Her smile never reached her eyes. "How nice of you to finally arrive." We were 5 minutes early. The house was packed with relatives I barely knew. Patricia had a gift for inviting people who shared her opinions about everything. Especially about me. I recognized the looks immediately. The whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by. The polite smiles that felt like daggers. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal that might just change how you see your own relationships. Dinner started normally enough. Patricia had prepared her famous prime rib. The table looked magazine-worthy, with her grandmother's china and crystal glasses. Everyone complimented her cooking. Everyone praised her hosting skills. It felt like a performance where I didn't know my lines. Then came the toast. Patricia stood up, glass in hand, commanding attention like she was addressing a royal court. "I want to thank everyone for being here today. Family is everything. It's what keeps us grounded in our values." Her eyes found mine across the table. Some people understand what family means. Others. She paused dramatically. Others seem to think they can rewrite the rules to suit themselves. My stomach dropped. This wasn't going to be a generic holiday speech. This was aimed directly at me. When my son Mark married Ashley, I welcomed her with open arms. I tried to guide her, to help her understand our traditions, our standards. Her voice grew sharper with each word. But some people are just too stubborn to accept good advice. Mark squeezed my hand under the table. He looked as shocked as I felt. This was escalating faster than either of us expected. Ashley thinks she knows better than everyone else. She thinks she can isolate my son from his family, turn my grandchildren against me. Patricia's facade was cracking. The sweet grandmother act was dissolving into something much uglier. I wanted to disappear. 23 pairs of eyes were staring at me. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked like they were enjoying the show. "Patricia, maybe we should—" Mark started to interrupt. "No, Mark. This needs to be said." She turned back to me. "Ashley, your behavior this past year has been unacceptable. The disrespect you've shown me. The way you've tried to turn my son against me. It ends today." I felt my face burning. This was humiliation on a level I'd never experienced. In front of my children. In front of people I'd have to see at future family events. If there were any future family events. Then she said the words that changed everything. "You are poison in this family, Ashley. You don't belong here. You never did." And if you had any decency left, you'd walk away and let my son find someone worthy of our family name." The room went dead silent. Even the children stopped talking. Emma looked confused and scared. Jake was staring at his plate, trying to disappear. That's when Patricia did something I'll never forget. Something that crossed a line I didn't even know existed. She walked around the table, stood directly in front of my chair, and spit in my face. Have you ever had a moment where time seemed to freeze? Where everything you thought you knew about yourself and your limits suddenly shifted? That was my moment. Sitting there with Patricia's saliva dripping down my cheek, I felt something inside me break, and then rebuild itself into something much stronger. What I did next would expose secrets that destroyed Patricia's perfect reputation forever. To understand what happened next, you need to know how I got to that moment. How a girl who once believed in keeping peace at any cost became someone willing to go to war. I met Mark 5 years earlier at a coffee shop near the university. He was studying engineering. I was finishing my degree in graphic design. He seemed different from other guys. Quieter, more thoughtful. He talked about his family with such admiration that I couldn't wait to meet them. Our first date stretched into 4 hours of conversation. Mark told me about growing up as Patricia's golden child, how she'd raised him and his younger sister Rebecca after their father died when Mark was 12. "Mom sacrificed everything for us," he said with genuine reverence. "She's the strongest person I know. I should have paid more attention to that word, sacrificed. It would become Patricia's favorite weapon." When Mark first brought me home, Patricia seemed genuinely pleased. She hugged me warmly, asked about my family, my dreams, my plans. Made me feel like I was exactly what she'd hoped for in a daughter-in-law. I was so naive. The changes started small. Comments about my clothes. "That dress is lovely, dear, but maybe something more conservative next time?" Suggestions about my career. "Graphic design is nice, but wouldn't you be happier focusing on family?" Critiques disguised as concern. "You look tired, Ashley. Are you taking proper care of yourself?" Mark noticed but didn't know how to respond. His mother had always been the final authority in his world. Questioning her felt like betraying everything she'd done for him. Then came the engagement. Patricia took control immediately. She had opinions about everything. The venue wasn't prestigious enough. My dress wasn't traditional enough. My family wasn't prominent enough. Nothing I wanted mattered because Patricia knows best. I started pushing back after she tried to uninvite my college roommates. "They don't fit the image we're creating," she explained. That's when I first saw her true face. The sweetness disappeared. Her voice turned cold and calculating. "Ashley, you need to understand something. This family has a reputation to maintain. I won't let anyone damage that." Mark was caught in the middle. He loved me, but disappointing his mother felt impossible. We had our first real fight the night. She demanded my friends be excluded. "She raised me alone, Ashley. Everything she does comes from love." But I was starting to wonder if Patricia's version of love looked suspiciously like control. The wedding happened on her terms. I walked down the aisle feeling like I was joining a cult, not a family. Patricia sat in the front row wearing white, actual white, to my wedding, making sure everyone knew who really controlled this ceremony. Our first year of marriage was a constant battle for Mark's attention. Patricia called daily, sometimes twice. She needed help with groceries, with yard work, with loneliness. Mark jumped every time. I tried to be understanding. She was a widow. She'd given up everything for her children. But her needs seemed to expand to fill every available moment of our lives. When I got pregnant with Emma, Patricia's interference reached new levels. She had opinions about my prenatal vitamins, my doctor, my birth plan. She insisted on being in the delivery room. When I said no, she cried. Actually cried. about missing her grandchild's birth because of my selfishness. Rebecca, Mark's sister, tried to warn me. Mom's always been intense, she said during a rare, private conversation. But she's gotten worse since Dad died. It's like she can't handle not being the center of everyone's universe. Rebecca had her own struggles with Patricia. She'd moved 3 states away after college and rarely visited. I love Mom, but I need space to breathe, she explained. I was starting to understand why. After Emma was born, Patricia criticized my parenting constantly. I held the baby wrong, fed her wrong, dressed her wrong. Nothing I did met her standards. Mark tried to defend me, but Patricia had perfected the art of emotional manipulation. I'm only trying to help, she'd say with tears in her eyes. I raised 2 children successfully. I know what works. The implication was clear. I didn't know what I was doing. I was failing as a mother. Only her guidance could save my child from my incompetence. When Jake came along 2 years later, the pattern intensified. Patricia expected to be consulted on every decision. She showed up unannounced, rearranged my house, corrected me in front of the children. I felt like a guest in my own life. The breaking point came 6 months before that Christmas dinner. Patricia had keys to our house. She used them freely, letting herself in whenever she pleased. I'm family, she'd say when I objected. This is what families do. That's when I discovered something that changed everything I thought I knew about my saintly mother-in-law. The discovery happened by accident. I came home early from work with a migraine and found Patricia in our kitchen. She was on the phone, speaking in a voice I'd never heard before. Soft, intimate, almost purring. I can't wait to see you tonight. David, Mark's working late again. We'll have plenty of time. She giggled like a teenager. Wear that cologne I like. David, as in Pastor David Matthews, the married pastor of Patricia's church, the man she praised constantly for his wisdom and spiritual guidance, the same man who'd performed our wedding ceremony and baptized both my children. I stood frozen in the hallway. Patricia was planning a rendezvous with a married pastor while lecturing me about family values and moral standards. The hypocrisy was staggering. She ended the call and noticed me standing there. For a split second, panic flashed across her face. Then she recovered with practiced ease. Ashley, dear, you're home early. I was just confirming tonight's prayer group. She smiled that familiar smile, the one that never quite convinced me. Pastor David wanted to discuss the Christmas pageant. I nodded and pretended to believe her. But something had shifted. For the first time in 5 years, I had leverage, information that could crack Patricia's perfect facade. I wasn't sure what to do with it yet, but I knew it was important. Over the next few weeks, I paid closer attention. Patricia's behavior. Patterns became obvious once I knew what to look for. Her mysterious evening activities, her sudden interest in church committees that required after-hours meetings, her new wardrobe choices that seemed far too elegant for Bible study. Mark noticed the changes too, but interpreted them differently. Mom seems happier lately, he said one evening. More energetic. Maybe she's finally moving on from Dad's death. If he only knew how she was moving on. I started documenting everything. Call times, meeting schedules, the lies she told to cover her activities. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I needed protection. Patricia was escalating her criticism of me. The family dinner comments were becoming more frequent and more vicious. During Emma's 4th birthday party, Patricia pulled me aside. I'm concerned about your influence on my granddaughter, she said. Emma's becoming willful, disrespectful. She's picking up your bad habits. Emma had simply asked for chocolate cake instead of vanilla, a normal 4-year-old preference. But in Patricia's world, It was evidence of my failure as a mother. Maybe it's time you considered what's best for these children, Patricia continued. Mark could raise them properly if he didn't have to constantly counteract your poor example. The implication was clear. She wanted me gone. Not just from family events, from Mark's life entirely. That night, I made a decision. I was done being Patricia's victim, done accepting abuse in the name of keeping peace, done protecting her reputation while she destroyed mine. I called Rebecca. We'd stayed in touch despite the distance, bonding over our shared experiences with Patricia's controlling behavior. She listened as I told her about the pastor situation. I'm not surprised, Rebecca said sadly. Mom's always been good at justifying her behavior. Dad used to call it her special rules for special people philosophy. She can do whatever she wants because she's suffered enough. Rebecca had her own stories. Patricia had sabotaged her college relationships, claiming the boyfriends weren't good enough. She'd manipulated Rebecca's job choices, making her feel guilty for considering opportunities that would take her far from home. The reason Rebecca lived 3 states away wasn't just for space, it was for survival. What are you going to do? Rebecca asked. I wasn't sure yet, but I knew the Christmas dinner was coming. Patricia had been planning it for months, inviting everyone she wanted to impress. Her church friends, her neighborhood social circle, distant relatives who rarely saw us. It would be the perfect stage for whatever performance she had planned. 2 weeks before Christmas, Patricia escalated again. She showed up at Emma's school, claiming there was a family emergency. When the confused teacher called me, I discovered Patricia had tried to pick up Emma without permission. Her excuse? I wanted to take her Christmas shopping. I didn't think Ashley would mind. But she'd never asked, never called. Just assumed she could override my parental authority because she disagreed with my rules. That's when I realized Patricia's Christmas dinner wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be an execution. My execution. She'd invited all those people as witnesses to my public humiliation. She wanted to destroy me in front of everyone who mattered. She had no idea I was ready to return the favor. Sitting at that Christmas table with Patricia's spit dripping down my face, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Pure, righteous fury. Not the helpless anger I'd carried for years. Something crystalline and powerful. The room was dead, silent. Everyone stared at me, waiting to see if I'd crumble like Patricia expected. Mark looked horrified. The children were confused and scared. Patricia stood over me, triumphant, like she'd just delivered the killing blow. She had no idea what was coming. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady as stone. Patricia, I said, wiping my face with my napkin. My voice was calm, almost conversational. Before I respond to your display, I think everyone should know the truth about your evening activities. Her face went pale. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Pastor David Matthews. I held up my phone, showing the voice recording app I'd been using to document her behavior. Specifically, your affair with Pastor David Matthews. The gasps around the table were audible. Patricia's perfect guests suddenly looked riveted. This wasn't the show they'd expected, but it was definitely entertaining. That's ridiculous, Patricia stammered. David and I work together on church committees. There's nothing. Thursday nights at the Marriott downtown, I continued. Room 237. You told Mark you were at prayer group. You told the church you were visiting sick parishioners. I scrolled through my documentation. Shall I play the recording of your phone call from last week? The one where you discussed which lingerie David prefers? Patricia's composure shattered. Completely. You have no right. I have every right to defend myself against someone who just spit in my face. I stood up, meeting her eyes directly. You've spent 5 years telling everyone I'm not good enough for your family, questioning my morals, my parenting, my character. Meanwhile, you're sneaking around with a married pastor. Mark's Aunt Susan, one of Patricia's church friends, looked scandalized. Patricia, is this true? It's complicated, Patricia said desperately. David's marriage is troubled. We provide comfort to each other. It's not what you think. It's exactly what we think, I replied. It's adultery. With a man who counsels other couples about marriage, who baptized your grandchildren, who preaches about moral values every Sunday while violating his own wedding vows. Patricia tried to regain control. Even if that were true, it doesn't excuse your behavior, Ashley. Your disrespect, your attempts to turn my son against me. My attempts to set boundaries, I corrected. To protect my children from your manipulation. To build a marriage that doesn't require your constant approval. I looked around the table at all the faces watching this drama unfold. People who judged me based on Patricia's carefully crafted narrative. Time for them to see the truth. For 5 years, I've listened to Patricia tell everyone how selfish I am, how I'm damaging this family, how I don't understand what real commitment looks like. I gestured toward her. This is the woman lecturing me about values, a woman who lies to her church, betrays her community, and destroys someone else's marriage while pretending to be a pillar of righteousness. Mark finally found his voice. Mom, is this true? About Pastor David? Patricia looked at her son with tears in her eyes, the same tears she'd used to manipulate him for years. Mark, I can explain. Is it true? His voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. Yes, she whispered. But you don't understand the circumstances. I understand enough. Mark stood up, taking my hand. We're leaving. Mark, please. Patricia reached for him, but he stepped back. You spit in my wife's face, at Christmas dinner, in front of our children. His voice was shaking with anger. You humiliated the mother of your grandchildren because you're angry about your own guilty conscience. Patricia's perfectly orchestrated dinner was falling apart. Her guests were whispering among themselves. Some were already reaching for their coats. The performance she'd planned to destroy me had backfired spectacularly. If you're watching this, have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and protecting yourself? Let me know in the comments, because what happened next taught me something crucial about standing up to bullies. As we gathered our children and headed for the door, Patricia made one last desperate play. Mark, I'm your mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you. You can't choose her over me. Mark turned back to face her. Mom, I'm not choosing Ashley over you. I'm choosing respect over abuse. There's a difference. We walked out into the cold December air. For the first time in 5 years, I could breathe freely. The next few weeks were chaos. Word spread quickly through Patricia's social circles. A scandal involving the beloved pastor and the church matriarch was too juicy to contain. By New Year's Day, Pastor David had resigned from his position. His wife filed for divorce. Patricia found herself ostracized from the very community she'd used to judge me. Mark struggled with the revelation about his mother. The woman he'd idolized his entire life had been living a lie. Everything he thought he knew about her moral authority crumbled overnight. I feel like my whole childhood was based on fiction. He told me one evening as we sat together after the kids went to bed. All those lectures about doing the right thing, about honor and family values, was any of it real? I held his hand, understanding his pain. The lessons were real, Mark. even if the messenger was flawed. You're not responsible for her choices. Rebecca called from her home 3 states away, laughing for the first time in years. Ashley, you did what I never had the courage to do. You exposed the truth. Mom's been playing victim and saint for so long, she forgot people might actually call her on it. Patricia tried multiple approaches to regain control. First came the apology texts, tearful voicemails about how she'd made a mistake in the heat of emotion, how family should forgive and move forward. When we didn't respond, she escalated to threats. I'll sue for grandparents' rights, she warned in one particularly nasty message. I'll tell everyone you're keeping my grandchildren from me out of spite. Mark handled that one himself. Mom, you spit in my wife's face and publicly humiliated her. If you want to explain that behavior to a judge, be my guest. The threats stopped. The most surprising outcome was the support I received from other family members. People I barely knew reached out with their own stories about Patricia's controlling behavior. Apparently, I wasn't her first victim, just her most recent one. Mark's cousin Jennifer called to apologize. I should have warned you years ago. Aunt Patricia destroyed my engagement to someone I loved because he wasn't suitable. But I was too young to fight back then. I'm glad you found your strength. But the real test came 6 months later. Emma started asking about Grandma Patricia. Why didn't they see her anymore? Why couldn't they visit her house? Mark and I had long conversations about how to handle this. We didn't want to poison the children against their grandmother, but we also couldn't pretend everything was normal. Grandma Patricia made some choices that hurt people, I explained to Emma one afternoon. Sometimes when people hurt us, we need time apart to heal. That doesn't mean we don't love them. It means we're taking care of ourselves. Emma nodded solemnly. Like when Tommy was mean to me at school, and I didn't play with him for a while. Exactly like that. Meanwhile, I was discovering who I really was without Patricia's constant criticism. I started taking art classes again, something I'd abandoned because Patricia thought it was impractical. I made new friends at Emma's school, women who appreciated my sense of humor instead of trying to change it. Mark noticed the changes. You seem lighter, he said one evening. Happier. I didn't realize how much Mom's behavior was affecting you. I didn't realize either, I admitted. I thought keeping peace was the same thing as keeping love. I forgot that love should never require you to accept abuse. The biggest surprise was how much our marriage improved. Without Patricia's constant interference, Mark and I rediscovered why we'd fallen in love. We made decisions together, raised our children according to our values, not her expectations, built the life we actually wanted instead of the one she'd planned for us. 1 year later, we received an unexpected letter. Patricia had moved to Florida to be near her elderly sister. She was seeing a therapist, working on understanding why she'd behaved so destructively. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she wrote. I know I don't deserve that yet, but I want you to know that I'm trying to become someone worthy of my grandchildren's respect, someone who earns love instead of demanding it. It wasn't an apology, exactly, but it was acknowledgement, recognition that her behavior had been wrong. That was more than I'd expected. Have you ever had to cut ties with someone you thought you'd always have to tolerate? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst behavior. Comment below if you've faced a similar situation. We weren't ready for reconciliation. Maybe we never would be. But for the first time, I felt hope that Patricia might actually change. Not because we demanded it, but because she finally understood the consequences of her actions. Today, as I'm recording this story, it's been 2 years since that Christmas dinner. 2 years since I learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you the villain in someone else's story. Patricia is still in Florida. We exchange Christmas cards now. Brief, polite updates about the children. She sends birthday gifts that show she's actually paying attention to what Emma and Jake like, instead of what she thinks they should like. It's progress, even if it's not reconciliation. The most important change has been in my relationship with Mark. We went to couples counseling to work through the damage Patricia's interference had caused. Mark had to learn how to put our nuclear family first. I had to learn how to express my needs instead of suffering in silence. I spent so long being afraid of disappointing Mom that I forgot I had other people to consider, he told me during one session. I let her hurt you because confronting her felt impossible. That was wrong. Therapy taught us that healthy families have boundaries, that love doesn't mean accepting whatever treatment someone decides to give you, that children learn relationship patterns from watching their parents, and we wanted to model something better. Emma is 6 now. Jake is 4. They're confident, happy kids who know their voices matter in our family. When Emma disagrees with us, she argues her point respectfully instead of automatically submitting. When Jake has big emotions, he talks about them instead of hiding them. They're learning that relationships should feel safe, not scary. Sometimes people ask if I regret exposing Patricia's affair so publicly. If I wish I'd handled it more privately. The honest answer is no. Patricia chose to humiliate me in front of 23 people. She weaponized public shame to try to destroy me. Defending myself with the truth wasn't cruel. It was necessary. But I do understand why some people struggle with this concept. We're raised to believe that family loyalty means protecting family secrets, that keeping peace is more important than keeping truth, that women especially should absorb abuse quietly to maintain harmony. I'm here to tell you that's wrong. Toxic people count on your unwillingness to expose them. They bank on your desire to be the bigger person while they behave like smaller ones. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst behavior. If you're in a similar situation right now, please know that you're not crazy. Gaslighting makes you question your own perceptions, but trust your instincts. If someone's behavior toward you feels wrong, it probably is wrong. You don't have to accept mistreatment because of blood relationships or marriage ties. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. And self-preservation is a prerequisite for being able to love others well. I started a blog after all this happened, writing about family dynamics, toxic relationships, and the journey to healing. The response has been overwhelming. Hundreds of people sharing their own stories about controlling parents, manipulative in-laws, and the courage it takes to choose yourself. One message particularly stayed with me. A woman wrote, "Reading your story gave me permission to leave my emotionally abusive marriage. I thought staying was the right thing to do for my children. You helped me realize I was actually teaching them that love looks like accepting cruelty. Thank you for showing me another way. That's why I'm sharing this with you today. Not for revenge or attention, but because someone else might need to hear that they deserve better. That family dysfunction isn't your responsibility to fix. That protecting yourself and your children from toxic behavior is an act of love, not selfishness." Mark and I renewed our wedding vows last month. Just us, the kids, and a few close friends. No one got to override our choices. No one criticized our decisions. It was the wedding we should have had the first time. Patricia wasn't invited. That wasn't meant to be cruel. It was meant to be honest. Trust is earned, and she hasn't earned ours yet. Maybe someday she will, or maybe she won't. Either way, we're okay. The children asked why Grandma Patricia wasn't at the ceremony. I told them the truth in age-appropriate language. Sometimes people have to work on being kind before they can celebrate with us again. We hope Grandma is learning how to be kinder. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and Subscribe for more content about family dynamics and personal growth. Share your own experiences in the comments. Let's create a community where people feel safe telling the truth about their relationships. And remember, you are not responsible for managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own well-being. You deserve respect. You deserve kindness. You deserve relationships that lift you up instead of tearing you down. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you write your own.